Okay, we are reading the 14 lessons. We are on chapter 6 and starting on the section of pastime clairvoyance today. Time clairvoyance, so far as regards the sensing of past events, is not a rare faculty among advanced oculists. In fact, it may be termed a common one among such people. And the same faculty, imperfectly manifested, is found among many ordinary psychics, who are not acquainted with the nature of their power. Among this last mentioned class of people, time clairvoyance is more or less unsatisfactory because imperfect and misleading from the causes which will be seen presently. The statement that one may see past events and scenes, even by the astral vision, will readily be seen to require an eternally different explanation from that given of simple and space clairvoyance. For in the latter cases, the clairvoyant sees that which actually occurring somewhere at the time it is seen, or at least a few seconds previous, whereas in the later case, the clairvoyant sees something which has occurred perhaps ages ago, and after apparently all records of it have perished. This is an explanation apparently perished. Oculists known that nothing ever perishes and that there are existence on higher planes of matter, imperishable and unalterable records of every scene, act, thought, and thing that ever existed or occurred. These akasic records are not on the astral plane, but they are on the plane far above it, but they are mirrored on the astral plane, just as the sky and the clouds are reflected in the body of the lake. And the observer who cannot see the sky itself may see its counterpart in the water. And just as his vision may be distorted by the ripples and waves on the water, so may the astral vision of these records of the past become distorted and imperfect impressions by reason of disturbances in the astral light. Oculists for ages have used water as a symbol of the astral light. Do you see why? These akasic records contain the memory of all that has passed, and he who has access to them may read the past as he may a book. But only the most advanced intelligences have free access to these records, or rather have the power to read them. But many have acquired a greater or lesser degree of power, which enables them to read more or less plainly from the reflections of these records in the astral plane. Those who have developed time clairvoyance are able to see these reflections of the records as scenes actually occurring before them. Just as one hears from the phonograph the voices of the people long since passed out of the body, and just as others may listen to our voices centuries hence, it is possible to explain to beginners the nature of these records. We have no words to explain them. Even we who write these words have but a partial understanding of the inner mystery of the akasic records. Then how we may make ourselves plain to those who are still further back on the path than we are, we can think of but one illusion, and that an imperfect one. In the brain of every human being, there are millions of cells, each containing the records of some past event or thought or action. We cannot find these records by the microscope or by chemical test. And yet they are there and may be used. The memory of every act, thought, and deed remains during life in the brain, although its owner may not always be able to call it up in recollection. Can you grasp the idea of a akasic record from this illustration? In the great memory of the universe, are registered and stored away the records of all that has gone before. Those who have access to the records may read, and those who are able to see even the astral reflection of the records may read with greater or less accuracy and skill. This is the best we can offer you in the way of explaining an unexplainable matter. Those who are ready for the hidden truth hidden in these words will see a glimpse of it. Others may others must wait until they are ready. Future clairvoyance. Time clairvoyance, so far as seership or the seeing into the future is concerned, is even more difficult to explain. We shall not attempt it, except to say that in the astral light there are to be found faint and imperfect reflections, the workings of the great law of cause and effect, or rather the shadows cast before the coming events. So few have the power of a closer viewpoint of things, causing these shadows or reflections, while more have a degree of psychic power, enabling them to see with their astral vision these poor reflections, distorted and uncertain by the reason of waves and ripples on the body of the lake of the astral light. There are higher planes of power whereby a few in each age have been able to see partially into the future. But such powers are far above the poor astral plane faculties, which, although quite wonderful to the untrained oculist, are not so highly viewed by those who have progressed along the path. We almost regret to be compelled to pass over this part of the subject in so few words, and with the mere hint of even the small particle of truth vouchsafed to even the advanced seeker of the way, but we know full well that all will receive the light needed by them, just the moment they are ready, not one moment later, not one moment sooner. All that can be done is for us to drop a word here, a hint here, there, and a planting of the seed. May the harvest come soon and be a rich one. Clairaudience. Clairaudience is the hearing on the astral plane by means of the astral senses. Nearly all that we have said about clairvoyance is equally true of clairaudience, the only difference being that a different astral organ is used. Simple clairvoyance is similar to simple clairvoyance. Simple clairaudience is similar to simple clairvoyance. Space clairaudience is akin to space clairvoyance. Pastime clairaudience is similar to pastime clairvoyance. Even future clairvoyance has a shadow of remnants in clairaudient phenomena. The only difference between the two astral manifestations is that they are experienced through two different astral senses. Some clairvoyants are also clairaudience, which others lack the latter power. On the other hand, some hear clairaudiently but are unable to see the astral light. On the whole, clairaudience is a somewhat rather manifestation than is clairvoyance. Psychometry. Just as we may sometimes recall an apparently forgotten thing by seeing something which is associated with that thing in our memory, so may we sometimes be able to open up the astral reflection of the akashic records of some particular scene or event by touching some material associated with the event or scene. There seems to be almost an infinity between a bit of matter and a particular portion of the akashic records containing the past history of the thing in question. A bit of metal or stone or cloth or hair will open up the psychic vision of things previously associated with the past. Or, on the other hand, we may bring ourselves in rapport with persons now living by means of a particle of their clothing, hair, or articles formerly carried by them. The report condition thus established, enabling us to more easily set up the astral tube. Psychochemi- Psychometry is merely one of more forms of clairvoyance brought into operation by means of some connecting between persons or things, or some object connected with these persons or things. It is not a distinct class of psychic phenomena, but merely a variation of the other classes, sometimes combining several classes of clairvoyance in its manifestation. How to develop psychic powers. We are often asked the question, which is probably in the minds of the majority of our students, at least those who have not manifested any marked exhibition of psychic power. How can one develop psychic power which is latent within him? There are many methods of such development, a few of which are desirable, many of which are undesirable, and some of which are positively harmful. Among the harmful methods are those in use among certain savage races, and which obtain even among misguided ones of our own race. We allude to such objectionable practices as the use of stupefying drugs, whirling dances, voodoo practices, repulsive rites of black magicians, and other similar practices which do not consider it wisdom to even mention. These practices aim to produce an abnormal condition similar to the intoxication, and which, like intoxication and drug habitats, only result in physical and psychical ruin. Those indulging in them do, it is true, develop a low order of psychic or astral power, but they invariably attract themselves an undesirable class of astral entities and often open themselves up to influence of low order of intelligence, which wise men carefully avoid and refuse to entertain. We will do no more than utter a warning against these practices and their results. Our work is intended to elevate our students, not drag them to a level of black magicians. Other practices, more or less undesirable, although not absolutely harmful in the sense that we speak of the last mentioned ones, and more or less common among both the Hindus of certain class and the Western people. We allude to the methods of self hypnotation and of hypnotation by others in order to produce or induce a physical condition in which the person is entitled to catch a glimpse of the astral world. Gazing at some bright object until a trance-like condition is induced, or the repetition of some monotonous formula until a drowsy condition is produced, are among the methods of this class. In the same class, we place the ordinary process of hypnotism by others for the same purpose. There is, of course, a higher form of mesmerism known to the oculists, which is on an entirely different plane, but the oculists are reluctant to use same except in certain cases where good may result, and such methods are not known to the ordinary operator, who at last too often is a person of imperfect occult knowledge and training and of a low degree of moral character. We caution our students against allowing themselves to be experimented with in this manner. There are two methods of psychic development practiced by the yogis, which we will mention here. The first and highest is the development of psychic powers by first developing the spiritual faculties in nature. When the psychic powers may be used with intelligence and power without any special training, the higher attainment carrying it with the lower. In other words, the yogi bent on spiritual attainment, contents himself with merely an intellectual acquaintance with psychic power in passing on, and then after he has acquired the higher spiritual knowledge and development, he returns the uses of the tools ready at his hand and the use of which he now understands. In the 14th lesson of the series, we will point out the ways of this development. The lesson will be entirely devoted to pointing out the way to spiritual attainment. There is, however, another whereby some students of the yoga philosophy develop psychic powers in themselves, preferring to gain this knowledge by experiment and experience before passing on to the spiritual plane. We have no fault to find with this course, providing the student does not regard psychic power as the end of attainment, and providing he is always inspired with worthy motives and does not allow the interest of the astral plane to divert him from the main object, spiritual development. Some of the yogi students follow the plan of the first mastering the body by the mind, and then mastering the instinctive mind by the intellect under the direction of the will. The first steps in mastery of the body have been spoken by us in the science of breath, and will be more clearly brought out and added to our forthcoming book, Hatha Yoga. The mental control forms a subject in itself, and we trust to find time to write a little manual on the subject sometime during the present year. If the student wishes to experiment a little for himself, we suggest that he acquire self-control and practice concentration in the silence. Many of you have already had exhibitions of psychic power, and you may practice along the lines corresponding to manifestations you have already had. If it be telepathy, practice with some of your friends and note results. A little practice will work wonders for you. If it be clairvoyance, you may practice with a crystal or a glass or clear water to assist in concentrating and to form the beginning of the astral tube. If it be psychometry, practice it by picking up some objects such as a pebble, a coin, a key, and sit quietly taking note of fleeting impressions, which at first will come but dimly before your mind. The description of the different classes of phenomena mentioned in this lesson will suggest methods and exercises for you. But do not allow yourself to be carried away by psychic practices. They are interesting and instructive, but they are not essential to the stage of development. Keep your mind fixed on the goal, the end to be attained, the development of the real self, the realization of the I am within you, and the higher realization of your oneness with all. Peace to the student. You have our loving thought and wishes for your farewell. If you ever feel the need of our sympathy and mental help, call for it in the great silence and we will respond. The 6th lesson, mantra and meditation. Before the eyes can see, they must be incapable of tears. Before the ear can hear, it must have lost its sensitiveness. Before the voice can speak in the presence of the masters, it must have lost the power to wound. These words are capable of a number of meanings, each adapted to the wants of different people in various stages of development. They have their psychic meaning, their intellectual meaning, and their spiritual meaning. We take our meditation this month, one of the many meanings. Let us take it into the silence with us. Our eyes must be incapable of tears of the wounded pride, unkind criticisms unmerited abuse, unfriendly remarks, the annoyance of everyday life, the failures and disappointments of everyday existence before we can see clearly the great spiritual truths. Let us endeavor to rise by degrees above the incidences of personality and strive to realize our individuality, the I am, with which is above the annoyances of personality, and to learn that these things cannot hurt the real self, and that they will be washed from the sand of time by the ocean of eternity. Likewise, our ear must lose its sensitivity to unpleasant incidences of personality, above alluded to as causing tears. Therefore, it can hear the truth clearly and free from jarring noises of the outward strife of personality. One must grow to be able to hear these things and yet smile, secure in the knowledge of his soul and his powers and destiny, before the voice can speak to those high in order of life and spiritual intelligence. It must have long since forgotten how to wound others by unkind words, petty spite, unworthy speech. The advanced man does not hesitate to speak truth even when it is not pleasant, if it seems right to do so, but he speaks in the tone of a loving brother who does not criticize, but merely feels the other's pains and wishes to remove its cause. Such a one has risen above the desire to talk back, cut another by unkind and spiteful remarks, or to get even by saying, "You're another." These things must be cast aside like a worn out cloak. The advanced man needs them not. Take these thoughts with you into silence and let the truth sink into your mind, that it may take root, grow, blossom, and bear fruit. Okay.
Thank you. Perfect timing.
Yeah.
I just love the language in this book versus like in the last book we read, the Gita, the version of the Gita we read, where it was like, do it this way or don't do it at all. I'm exaggerating, but like that was sometimes how we felt.
Mm-hmm.
I just love like some of this, like this chapter didn't speak to me so much on the clairvoyance. Like I'm glad I learned about it, but did I do any of the practices? No, but like some of the sentences I took away were, however, we are not starting to prove the existence of clairvoyance to you. We must assume that you know it to be a fact, or at least not agnostic to the idea. I just think it's like, it's like, again, like, just like, here's the information. We're not going to go deeper, but here it is. It's not like believe it or stop reading.
Yep.
And I loved when the parts where they say, this is the best we can offer you in the way of explaining an unexplainable matter. Those who are ready for the truth hidden in these words will see a glimpse of it. Others must wait until they are ready. I love that so much because it's like, it made me like feel like, and I can relate that to the Gita too, where it's like, the truth is here, but maybe I'm not ready for it. So like some things I understand immediately and some things I'm not really ready for. And some things I don't necessarily push back on, but I'm like, okay, it's just not my time. Like these people are so understanding. And I highlighted the sentence, but we know full well that all will receive the light needed by them just at the moment they are ready, not at one moment later, not one moment sooner.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we have everything we need and everything will come to us when we're ready. It's like, even though this chapter focused so much on clairvoyance, like these sentences were pretty powerful and life-changing to me when I read them, because I was like, okay. And the last sentence I highlighted, the advanced man does not hesitate to speak the truth, even when it is not pleasant, if it seems right to do so, but he speaks in the tone of a loving brother who does not criticize, but merely feels the other's pain and wishes to remove its cause.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Remember we spoke about, I think it could have been months ago, about I can't remember who it was. Some like saint or something, or I don't know, somebody who worked with animals, or I can't remember. But I was reading about him or learning about him through a podcast, and they said he had this like really unique way of helping people by making them realize a truth that, like I'll use a stupid example, like somebody's breath smells, but you don't know how to tell them.
Yeah.
But he had an amazing way of helping people by telling them something that would be hard for others to tell them, but he did it in a very comfortable way so that they received it, and it also, he wasn't like seen as the jerk.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it, but I think that's some kind of skill that I definitely don't have, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do. That probably made no sense. But.
No, it does make sense. It's a delicate balance though, because like if you have like your 5 people in your circle, and maybe you can speak your truth to them, like if someone's like, oh, does this dress look good on me, like for some of us we might like white lie and be like, yeah, no, it looks good, like a stranger in a store, like if you're at like the Kohl's fitting room, like, yeah, it looks good. But if it's like your best friend or sister, you're like, no, that looks awful, take it off. Like for some of us, speaking our truths to people comes so naturally. And you're not like, even though your tone might sound rude, like the person on the receiving end of it understands like you're just being your honest self.
Right.
But I don't think it's our job either to walk around correcting everybody's mistakes in a kind way either. So like if I run into someone on the train and they are talking to me, like I don't think it's my place that I just met this person to be like, your breath smells. Like so I do think that there is, and I also think for us ourselves, like this just dawned on me now, like today, like we have to be open to it too. Like we have to be open to receiving positive feedback, but also like not necessarily negative feedback, but like constructive criticism, like
Yeah.
stuff that like I have to get it at work. I'm sure you do too. Like I have to get it at work where I have to constantly like tell myself like, be patient with these people. And they have to touch it, like managers have to try to tell people nicely. Lauren had a doctor's appointment, that's why she had off. Yeah. And there's a way that people in a manager position have to do it in a kind way, speaking people's truths, like highlighting their strengths. I love the SWOT analysis, like their strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunities, and they call it the threats. But like I think that's a powerful practice for us to do to each other, and to speak our truth kindly to ourselves, because that's really important too. Like to be able to say, this is something that I'm struggling with and I'm not good at, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like whatever the example, you're looking at yourself in the mirror and being like, this does not look good on me. And more importantly, I think this does not feel good on me, because I think that's a lot of the times what we're feeling. For me, I know like when I put something on, since I've done my tidy project, everything I wear, I love. I no longer struggle with, oh, this doesn't look good, what should I wear? It's yoga leggings, yoga tank top, sports bra. That's my wardrobe now.
Yeah.
So except when I have to go into the office. I have my 3 dresses that I rotate between.
There you go. It takes a lot out, yeah, it takes a lot out of the guessing, and it allows you to just, it's like having a uniform. Like, okay, this is what I'm wearing. There's no,
Yeah.
and it, because you know, you don't have to waste time on those decisions.
Yeah, when you do the tidy project and she starts you with clothes and she's like, this is the easiest category to practice. It does make sense after you do it, because you're at some points it is a little challenging, but it does translate into your life, because once you start practicing with clothes, like these things spill over into the rest of your life. And it's like the decisions with clothes become as simple as the decisions with the activities you're going to do or the people you hang out with. Like, it's so much easier to say yes and no to, because you're starting to learn your own truth versus trying to put on a shirt that still has tags on it that you bought 5 years ago that you're still trying to like and you just don't like, and you're still carrying around with you. It's like, it's time to let it go.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking truth is hard. And I had to have a serious conversation last night with Eric, and like I cry immediately when I'm upset about something. So like, I thought it was funny. They're like, you can't really see until you don't have tears. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not really a big crier, but like the second I'm frustrated or have something really hard to say, even at work, I cry. It's so frustrating because it makes me feel weak.
Yeah, right.
Even though it's just like a natural thing that I can't even stop.
No, I do that too. Like when I'm imagining saying something, I imagining myself, I'm like, I'm gonna cry when this happens.
Yeah. And it's not so
I think you could.
Yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
I think you can look at it as like strength. I know, because we're built like that, negative mindset. We always run to that negative like idea. But if you think about it, it's kind of a strength that you crack open that way. And, people kind of hold themselves back. And that feel like, I don't know. I know that feeling I get. I'm very emotional as well. If I hold something in, I feel it all over my body, and it feels tight and it's uncomfortable, and that you can be so vulnerable. I think that's a strength. So if you look at it that way.
I 100% agree. And thank you for sharing that, because it's true.
Good point.
Yeah. And like, I think when I cry like that, it's like the story I'm creating in my head. Like, I've created the whole scenario in my head and I'm living it. So I'm reacting to it, even though it's not real life. In my head, my body's reacting to it as it's real life. And so many times when I'm having those conversations, the reason that I release tears is because I can see that the change isn't going to be made, and I'm frustrated.
Yep.
And it's not so much that I have to say something hard. It's just that I have to say something hard, and I know it's not going to go anywhere, and that it's coming, whatever the story is coming to an end. And
yeah, and that the outcome isn't going to be what you want.
Yeah, and I have to accept that. And it's just like a very frustrating, often sad scenario. But like, you still have to go ahead and say whatever it is.
And that also, what frustrates me, it's like I didn't do a good job of explaining it. Then I'm like, I didn't explain it right. I didn't set it up right. This is not the outcome that was meant to be. But that's also when you're dealing with like manipulative persons. I already know like how these conversations are going to go with some of these people.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, you already know how it's going to go. You already, like, for me, it's like, I already know how it's going to end, and I'm not going to but I have to say what I have to say. And I know nothing's going to change about it.
Yep.
And those are the moments that the tears come, because it's a tough situation to be in. And maybe that's a little bit of like it's either seeing into the future, like a psychic type of thing, or you're creating the future and you're just setting it up. So like, there's that too. It's like,
right. Yeah. Right.
Like, create that, or are you seeing that?
Right. Right. Like, did I manifest this into place because I thought the outcome would come out this way?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes like you're pleasantly surprised, and people don't react that way. And then you're like, oh, I'm not a psychic. I'm just kidding.
I'm waiting to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I know you have a tough thing going on, but yeah. All right, let's do some breath and meditate. It's 8:07. 8:08 now. Okay, so let's sit nice and tall. Take that nice long spine. But yeah, the language in this book is so much more relaxed than the Gita. And I think the Gita was saying the same thing, but in different wording, and it was just like more forth.
In words we couldn't understand.
Yeah. That's why we kept reading it, like, just take it and leave it.
Yeah.
All right, so sit up nice and tall, breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. You can take a few rounds of nostril breathing, lengthening the breath in, choosing if you want the eyes open or closed, and how you want to place the palms. And then if you want to move into alternate nostril, you'll leave the left palm down on the lap. And you can create a mudra here. I bring my pointer and thumb to touch and flip my palm up. For the right hand, you'll close the right nostril with the thumb, fold the peace fingers into the palm, and close the left nostril with the ring finger. So close the right, inhale through the left, close left, exhale right, inhale right, close right, exhale left, inhale left, close left, exhale right, inhale right, close right, exhale left, inhale left, close left, exhale right, inhale right, close right, exhale left, inhale left, close left, exhale right, inhale right, close right, exhale left. You can continue on a few rounds or settle into the meditation. I'm going to set the timer. Bringing hands to heart center. Namaste. Have a beautiful day, everybody.